Good afternoon. Today is January 11th, 2021, and this is the Police and Municipal Campus Building Committee meeting. As a preliminary matter, this is Patrick Pitney, Chair. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on this agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mo DiPaolo.
Here.
Kristen Lass.
Present.
Keith Baldinger.
Present.
Holly Luke.
Present.
Chief Anderson. Not yet. Justine Snyder.
Present.
Patrick Collins. Not yet. And Joseph Morrow. Joe, I saw your name there. Are you there? Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin, are you on with us today?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And Kevin Mizikar.
Oh, sorry.
Kevin Mizikar.
This is
Okay.
Kevin Griffin, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kevin Mizikar is not joining today.
Okay, very good. Angela Snell,
Present.
Alex Martinez,
Present.
and anticipated speakers, please respond in the affirmative. Matt Salad,
Present.
Jeff McElravy,
Present.
and Kevin Griffin is a yes. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Police and Municipal Campus Building Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable and public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Police and Municipal Campus Building Committee is convening by Google Hangouts as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each board member who has the lead role for this particular item or guest speaker who has the lead item associated with the agenda on the item. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members first and then to staff members, inviting each by name to provide any comment or questions. I will then call upon the members to offer a motion and then for a second. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute and unmute your phone by pressing *6 or mute your computer when you are not speaking as to not trigger your camera feed or background noise. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And before we start, I'll just see if, Chief, have you checked in yet? Kevin Anderson? And Patrick Collins? Mr. Collins, you there? Okay, we'll proceed. So first item on the agenda, we have the minutes from September 21st, 2020 and November 9th, 2020. Any comments or questions on those minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the minutes of the September 21 and November 9, 2020 meetings.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Kristen Lass, second.
Thank you, Kristen. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of September 21, 2020 and November 9, 2020. When I call your name, please vote. Mo DiPaolo,
Aye.
Kristen Lass,
Aye.
Keith Baldinger,
Aye.
Holly Luke,
Aye.
Justine Snyder,
Aye.
Joseph Morrow. Oh, I thought Joe was in. Okay, and myself, aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's approved 6-0. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Pat, sorry, it's Joe Morrow. I approve those.
Okay,
I
that
dropped out.
would be 7-0 then, Alex.
Pat, Chief Anderson here.
Thank you, Chief.
Aye.
Any comments on the minutes? You there, Chief? Do you have anything regarding the minute? We were just covering the minutes. Do you have anything regarding those?
I'm sorry, no, I don't.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll move on then. We have the invoice, item number 3, Tecton Architects invoice for $35,000. We all have a copy of that. I know I have it here somewhere. Any questions around that? So we have $35,000. That breaks down as the work plan, 1,500. Let's see, what do we have here? Current building schematic design, $35,000. And I assume we'll be getting an update on that shortly. Any questions around this invoice? There being none, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Mo DiPaolo, I move that we approve paying the invoice from Tecton Architects for $35,000.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Joe Morrow, second.
Okay, we have a second. Thanks, Joe. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the invoice from Tecton Architects in the amount of $35,000. When I call your name, please cast your vote. Mo DiPaolo,
Aye.
Kristen Lass,
Aye.
Keith Baldinger,
Aye.
Holly Luke,
Aye.
Chief Anderson,
Aye.
Justine Snyder,
Aye.
Joseph Morrow,
Aye.
and myself, aye. 8-0 on the invoice. Very good. Thank you very much. Kristen, at the last meeting, we had talked about where we were with the budget for the where we were for the budget. I lost my train of thought there for a minute, but can you give us an update on that?
Sure. So our team has reviewed the budget related to the feasibility study,
Thank
and
you.
we are fine with the feasibility study budget.
Okay.
We are wrapping up final contract documents with CMS and Tecton related to the design development and then construction of the project. We don't see any foreseen issues with that. There's just a few I's that need to be crossed, I's that need to be dotted, T's that need to be crossed, and should be moving forward. So we do not see any issues at this time from a budgetary standpoint. And we will be signing bonds for the $42 million project tomorrow through the treasurer.
Okay, very good. Is it possible to have that budget document sent out or no? For review, is that something that's generally done or?
We can do that, certainly. Yep, I'll work with Alex on that.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate
Sure.
that. All right, very good. Anything else regarding the budget? Okay, we'll move on. So we have an update from the owner's project manager. Matt, were you going to start? Were you going to lead us through that?
Yep, I'll kick it off. And I'm going to share my screen now. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. It's been a while since we've all gotten together. So we're really looking forward to really jumping into this project. So there. So we're going to give a little progress and status update, a little refresher on where we are and where we're headed. That's going to include just a reminder of the tentative schedule that we've built with some of the milestones we're targeting over the next few months. CMS is going to provide a quick update on the CM at risk solicitation process and where we stand currently with that. And then we're going to give a design team progress update. So we're going to go through some. We've been working over the past couple of months behind the scenes, sort of tightening up the floor plans, and we've been working through some modifications to the exterior of the building as we take it to the next level of detail. So we'll go through a couple of options that we've been looking at of some modifications. None of them are set in stone. We really just want to get a sense of how you guys are feeling with these alternative design options as far as some of the building details. So just as reminders, the tentative project schedule has us wrapping up full schematic design with all of our consultants over the next few weeks. So we're most of the way there. We're pretty much there on the architectural documents, but we've been ramping up some of our other sub-consultants that weren't part of the feasibility study portion of the schematic design of the building. So they've all been onboarded, and we've had some meetings. We meet weekly, and we've been doing some pretty heavy coordination on that. So they're moving forward pretty quickly in their work. We're targeting a mid-March design development deadline, with full construction documents right around mid-July. And we have two packages that we'll be releasing as part of that, most likely, and that'll be in coordination with the construction manager. The first set will likely be a site and foundation package. So that'll go out so that the construction manager can begin work while we get all the other sub-trades detailed and designed. And then we'll be issuing shortly thereafter a filed sub-bid bid package that'll go out for the various sub-trades. And we're targeting construction to start mid to late summer. So this is tentative. Once the CM comes on board, depending on how long that takes and where they feel we should be targeting, working with them, this could shift up or shift back a little bit. But this is sort of the initial schedule we've built as part of the feasibility study. Kevin, I don't know if you're or Neil, but if you want to give us an update on the CM at risk.
So, yeah, I'll give the update. On the 24th, we submitted our OIG application. We got receipt of that application being, in their possession on the 22nd. They technically have 60 days to respond. They don't clarify if that's from the date of submission or the date of receipt. So either way, that still fits within Tecton's plan for our 2/16 date, no matter which one of those dates the OIG picks for their 60-day window. But we can proceed with our entire CM selection at this point. The only thing we cannot do is sign a contract with them, but we can go through solicitation, we can go through negotiations and basically pick our finalists. We just can't execute a contract at this point. So we're already proceeding with that. We've received, actually, if you go to the next slide, Matt, we received 9 bids or 9 submissions, and the companies are listed right here. We've worked with the majority of them. We have a couple questions about a couple of them if they can get bonded for the amount that this project's worth, but we'll work through that in the selection committee process. So what we're going to do now is on Wednesday, I'm going to drop off all the packages to Town Hall. There's, I believe, 9 hard copies in each box. So there's a lot of boxes that are going to get dropped off. And what I'm also going to do is post a Dropbox link for everybody. And then Pat, I'll share it with you. And then you can disperse it to the subcommittee or the full committee, however you deem fit. And that will be an electronic version of each submission as well, because I know with COVID and stuff, people aren't necessarily going to want to drive to Town Hall to pick up a hard copy if they don't want to. So once everybody has that, we'll set up a date, the subcommittee to review and rank these 9 proposed firms, and then we'll rank them to a minimum of 3 firms, at which time we'll go through and ask for a technical price proposal, and we'll schedule interviews from there. And from there, basically, after we do the interview and we review their fee proposal, we can either negotiate with our number 1, or if negotiations with number 1 aren't successful, we can then go to number 2, and so on and so forth. And basically set up our contract. At that time, I think we're going to hear back from the OIG, and we should be able to roll right into a contract.
Kevin, what's the timeline for that?
For all of this?
Yeah.
I would say we should be able to conduct all of that within the next 30 days.
Okay,
Because if you think of the hard part's already happened to some extent, right? I mean, most likely we're going to do some sort of Zoom interview or a Google interview or, some sort of electronic interview unless we feel it's permissible to do it in person. So that kind of speeds everything up with these new electronic interviews because people's schedules are a lot more flexible that way, especially now with COVID. A lot of people are home sometimes and stuff like that. So we should be able to get through the review and the interviews, I would say, within the next 30 days.
that'd be great. Wonderful.
I mean, at the worst case, Pat, we're basically Matt and Tecton and Jeff, they would like the CM on board for 216, so that way they can start getting input, and we see no reason why that won't happen.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, Kristen.
So I've been involved in several evaluation processes for other projects. Will CMS be providing us with the evaluation criteria matrix for the committee members to fill out in advance, or how do you see that working?
Yep. Yes, we will send that matrix out. We could send it out probably in the next couple of days. I'll talk to Neil tomorrow, and if he hasn't done it, then either Neil or I will have it fully completed.
Great. And then Alex and I can work with the subcommittee to get some dates that work for everyone, because we do understand that it's about a month time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we would like to have all of our comments in within the next couple of weeks, I would say, the next week to 2 weeks at a maximum for any comments that we want to get back. So that way we can then finalize it, request those fee proposals, and schedule interviews.
Thank you.
And the reality is that the size of this project and the fact that it's CM, you kind of weeded out a lot of, I don't want to necessarily say bad apples, but contractors that you may need to do a lot more in-depth review on, because CM is very select in how you can get into that market. So right now you're really looking at who's going to be the best fit. So it's a little bit more, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's a little more relaxed in the sense of you're kind of looking for who's the right fit for us rather than looking for the guy that's absolutely the wrong fit that you need to try to find a way to get kicked off the list, I mean, the good thing is I think Fontaine's done a couple of jobs already in town. I believe they've gone well, so they've solicited. So that's a plus, from personal experience how they are. So that's kind of like, if they're good, then you kind of already move them into that 3 category or 4, whoever we deem we want to interview.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Pat, Pat?
Go ahead, Mom.
I think this question is for Kevin, Kristen, but subcommittee is going to look at all 9 contractors. The whole committee is going to look at the short list, right?
Yes.
That's how it works?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't think there's any rule out there, Mo, that says that if you're one of the members at the large committee that wants to take a look at it, I don't see why there's a reason why you couldn't take a look at them. But usually it's just for ease of processing the information.
Yeah, no, that's how I thought it worked. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Pat, I have a question.
Sure, Kevin, go ahead.
Matt may be able to answer this. Is that a new construction start date in July? The one I have is August 28th. I may have something that's
yeah, I think we're targeting the August 28th is the full project construction, but the site clearing and some of the prep work would start ahead of that.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. So a little progress update on the design side. Like I had said, the engineers have been kicked off, and they're working hard right now. We're actually starting internal coordination meetings between the town and some of our engineering groups. So we're starting that as early as this Thursday. We're going to be discussing some of the potentials for HVAC systems and building systems. So we like to start those conversations as early as we can because they have a large impact on the physical infrastructure that goes into the building. Geotech is starting their drilling for their borings tomorrow. So over the next 2 days, they'll be on site with their drill rig, and they'll be working through their soil analysis over the next couple of weeks. So we should have enough information to get our footings and foundations and subsurface detailed and designed over the next month or so. And like I had mentioned, the design is going to continually evolve throughout this process, and we've been working on it over the past couple of months to try to make a little bit more efficient of a footprint and really work out some of the more technical relationships within the building itself. And I'm going to go through some of those now. So the ground floor plan, the overall shape and form of the building hasn't changed too much. Initially, we started relooking at this because of the request to minimize the mass of the sally port and try to move it around back. We played with it a bunch of different ways, and we couldn't make all the internal relationships really work. And it still made sense programmatically to really keep it here, but we did play down the massing a little bit more. So we think that's going to have a better read.
Matt,
but,
just
yeah,
it did draw back towards the main mast by about 14 feet.
Yeah, that's correct. So we did reduce the size of it overall, not just in scale, but also in stature. So I'm gonna the basic organization hasn't really changed, but the more detailed portions of the spaces and departments have. So I'm gonna zoom into this. This is the southern portion of the plan. Some of the changes we did is we wanted to sort of reorganize some of the spaces that were a little bit more chopped up. So the clerk's office was kind of pieced together, and records was off to the side and sort of taking up some of the exterior wall space, and it led to sort of an inefficient internal flow. So we reorganized that a little bit, as well as the 311 call center. The dispatch area, we combined the two offices to be more of a single block, and moved the communications equipment room closer to the dispatcher's desks. Previously, it had been back here in the corner. We relocated it so it was closer to dispatch, less of a run for all the cabling and things like that need to happen in here. And it also makes a less complicated construction because we're going to be depressing the slab through this area and doing a raised access flooring so that modifications can be made much easier during the future years of the occupancy of this space. So the further remote we have it, the more complicated that construction and that ability to change becomes. So we brought that closer around. Same thing with patrol. We reorganized the space a little bit more, moved report prep closer to the hallway, and that allowed us to have a cleaner organization of some of the patrol desks. Moving up to the north part of the plan, some of this is still being worked out, but I'm going to work sort of back to front. We were working with our engineers and identified some of the MEP related spaces that need to be on the ground floor and need to be accessible on an exterior wall. And some of that is the water service coming in for the sprinkler room, the electrical and emergency electric. We anticipate that somewhere along the northwest of the building is probably going to be the best fit for the generator. So we want to make sure that those runs from the generator to the emergency electrical room are really short, because those secondary feeds are really expensive. So we want to keep that run as short as we can. One change that we're going to be working through is in reorganizing this, we pushed the ACO back here. There was a desire early on to have exterior access for the ACO because of some of the materials they'll be bringing in and out and not having to bring them through the rest of the building. So we're gonna kind of shift a lot of these rooms around so that we can get it back to the exterior. Apologies there. The cell area, we reorganized a little bit as well. Previously, the male cells were facing each other, which we don't really like because it becomes really difficult to have sight sound separation between those that are across a hall from each other. So we moved them to more of a linear block here in the south portion of the cell area. We also moved the juvenile cell and the female cells down to this portion of the building. Previously, they were up above in bail, and the prisoner release was down low. By moving the prisoner release up to the top part of the plan, we're able to isolate that exterior circulation of prisoners that are being bailed out from the rest of the circulation, and we'll get to that as we talk more about the training room. One other thing that we're looking at is we're still showing the lockers here at prisoner processing, and we're going to be moving those lockers into the cell passage area so that if somebody is in this cell, that their personal belongings can be just outside of that in a locker, so that there's no confusion once a prisoner is released, that all their belongings will be right there with them. The training room, we had discussed very early on in programming, and we went back and forth on this a number of times as to whether or not the training room would be tiered seating or not. And we're showing it now as a tiered seating design. So basically, you're entering into the training room at the top, and then you're stepping down to the presenting area off to the back. This allows us to have a better viewing angle for the different seating areas, but it also allows us to create a nice recessed plaza sort of breakout area to the back of the training room. So out in the site here, we'll have a little area where people that are attending a class or something like that, without having to go back through the building, we'll have an outdoor seating area that they'll be able to have lunch and take calls and things like that. And that's part of the drive also of why we wanted to have the prisoner release away from that area, so that we weren't congesting it. And also, we're going to be down a couple of feet in grade, so making that transition from building down and then out would create some issues with some of the topography in that area. On the upper floor, again, the program hasn't changed. We've just reorganized a few things to make it a little bit more efficient and cleaner. We also wanted to get a lot of our wet spaces away from dispatch as much as possible. If there's ever a leak or a toilet that overflows or something like that, that water coming down into the dispatch or the communications equipment room can be a real issue for the operation of the facility. That could take you offline for a couple of days as repairs go on. Those kind of things are inevitable. Water can move throughout a building when there is a leak, but we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we mitigate that as best as possible. So again, zooming in, previously we had the locker rooms right above dispatch, which is basically in this area here. We've moved that up adjacent to the stairs, so that's up and out of the way. So all the plumb areas are away from the dispatch down below. We reorganized the detectives bureau. Having that sort of large window over the front in this large open office space, it really made sense to take advantage of those views, and that is really the central focus of the building in this area. So we moved the open office space that was sort of up here and sort of linear and squished up in the corner and gave it a little bit more of a gracious workspace. And then the sergeants and lieutenants have moved up here, as well as the main conference room. And then the administrative offices and the services office, those really haven't changed too much. We showed this to a working group last Friday, and we had missed the admin sergeant, so we were able to bring the admin sergeant's office back in and sort of reshuffle the deck a bit. So we're meeting the program in this area. But really, what this boils down to at the end of the day is the floor plan and overall form of the building itself hasn't really changed, other than we were able to shrink the Sally Port area down a bit. But we haven't lost any program with this. We've just made things a little more efficient, and it resulted in about a net savings of 2,500 square feet out of the building area. So every square foot we save is dollars that we're building into our contingency. So right off the bat, before we bring the CM on board, we've already reduced the overall cost of the building, and the initial estimate was somewhere around $450 or something like that a square foot. So over 2,500 square feet, that's a good buffer that we're building in just in schematic design alone. So now this was the last iteration of the building exterior that we left off with. This is what went in front of the town during the ballot. And these were some of the materials that we were looking at previously. We added this slide in because we were looking at how some of these building elements were going to be pulled together. One thing we were looking at initially is we had sort of quarter boards defining the edge massing, but we wanted to speak back to the town hall a little bit more. So it has sort of a brick coin on the corners, so we brought in that element. And this is showing the stone water table that we had discussed previously, and some brick detailing that we were considering underneath some of the window sills. So this is sort of an image of what that might look like. But we wanted to take it a little bit further and explore some various options, because we sort of have until design development to really make some modifications to the building facade, and we can really make that up until we issue this for bid. But we wanted to explore other options and opportunities and just sort of take the temperature of the room and see where you guys felt on it. So one other option we were looking at is making small moves, but that have a significant impact on the building. I will note that here we're not showing the mass reduced at the sally port, but it is in reality lower. You'll see that at the next iteration. And I would point out that this elevation to the front of the building is set back another 60 feet. So between the sort of perspective of that out on the site in reality and some of the landscaping that we'll be able to work into this, that'll sort of fade back and be less prominent than it shows in the elevation. But in this, we were looking at sort of punching out some building elements with some of the windows. So we were bringing in some sort of brick surrounds that we would add in with some different brick detailing to define these bays a little bit more and add some vertical expression to the facade. And then we were looking at maybe integrating some precast concrete surrounds at the front entry. Just ways to bring some different materials and some different detailing in here to give that next layer of depth to the facade. And then that then plays itself around to the rest of the building. One thing we'll note, I think we initially were showing some windows down here at the north elevation of the training room. Since that's becoming our presenting wall, we're taking the windows away from there because they're going to conflict with that presenting wall. But we may, since we're going to have a taller ceiling space in there because we are stepping down, we may bring in some clear story windows up above that. We're still working through that currently. So we took this and then we wanted to, there were some things that were working, some things that weren't working. So we took one more stab at it. Over the past, I'm sorry, these are just some 3D exonometrics to sort of get a feel for how these elements kind of play themselves out. And then again, looking southwest. So we then looked at another option. We weren't really feeling the precast. It sort of seemed out of place as that big open surround, but we liked sort of bringing an element in that sort of gave a border and landed the windows so that they weren't just sort of floating out in space. So we took that same articulation we were showing on the previous one that sort of stopped at the floor line, and we brought that up to encapsulate that whole window bay. And it just gives the facade a little more verticality and a little more depth. And then taking that sort of stacked bond brick that we had shown underneath the windowsills previously and use that in between the two levels of windows so that they all become sort of a unit. And then instead of the precast surround at the main entry, we were looking at this also being layers of brick. So it would be another brick definition. So there isn't really precast on the campus currently. So we felt that if we were going to play with articulation, that the brick seemed to be the appropriate move for that. And that way, instead of playing with different materials that may or may not work, we're playing with lines in depth and recess. And again, taking this element around the rest of the building with the brick coins. And here you can see where we're sort of down that Sallyport roof line. And again, in Axon. And then we did a rendering of what that would look like in elevation, so you got a better feel of the materiality of that. So when you look at it in the flat elevations, that some of the elements sort of they appear a little punchier than they really are. This gives you sort of a sense of how those shadow lines start to interact and how the materials are consistent, but by playing with the depths, we're able to break up the facade a little bit and give a little more definition to it. So just real quick before we open it up, next steps over the month of January, we're going to continue to work through some of these details. We'll take your comments tonight. This isn't by any means final. These are just ideas that we want to sort of bounce off you. We're doing weekly targeted meetings between my design team and the town. Like I said, this Thursday, we're starting to talk about building systems and things like that. We'll then provide a summary back to the committee at the next committee meeting of all the sort of major decisions we've made in the direction that we're going on that. Pushing through schematic design and kicking off design development early February at the latest. So once we sort of lock a lot of these decisions down, then we're going to be moving into developing the more finite details. And then as Kevin had discussed, the progressing through the CM selection process, and we'll be onboarding the CM, hopefully pending the OIG approval for our application. That's it.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions out there? A lot of information.
As always.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you did with the Sallyport. I know, logistically it's difficult to, it's got to be in a certain location, but I appreciate the fact you worked on decreasing the mass, and by my calculations, that's a little bit over $1 million and more in reserve that we have. So excellent. Thank you for that. And I think it looks better too. I think it brings down the mass a little bit. I'd be interested in seeing if we can do it maybe at the next meeting. If you can do a side-by-side schematic of the police building and then town hall, just so we can get a comparison.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Any comments or questions for Matt?
Pat?
Well, go ahead.
I do have one. Matt, I was confused about what you were saying in the cell area where the lockers were getting moved. The drawing that I had from the meeting materials doesn't completely match what you had. Could you go over that again? Where those are going to be?
Yeah, I sent those out for distribution on Friday, and that's one whole day away from today. So we tend to work quickly and make a lot of changes. So we reworked a lot of that cell area, and in particular, I believe the one you have in your packet shows bail and prisoner release below the 3 other cells.
I think so.
So we reorganized that, but the other piece I was discussing is next to the prisoner processing area, the 2 U-shaped desks, there's a group of little boxes. Those represent lockers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are personal property lockers. So when somebody comes in and they have like a backpack on them that isn't something that needs to be processed as evidence, but will be returned to the detainee upon their release, those go in those lockers as for safe storage. And what happens sometimes is when they're out in the prisoner processing area, you got to create almost like a coat check type system where it might be confused or mixed up with somebody else's belongings. So the request was that we take those lockers, get rid of them from the prisoner processing area, and move those into the cell passage area so that if you're in cell A, directly across the hallway from you will be the locker in which your belongings will be stored so that there is no confusion. Say you're detained overnight for something and another officer is going to be the one releasing you. That way it's really simple for them to say this locker's across from this person and it's their belongings.
Okay. So then I guess I have a question. I thought when we were in earlier design discussions, I don't know if it was the chief or it came from a meeting with other officers, but I thought they didn't want the lockers across from the cell because when the doors were open, they could cause present a little bit of a danger if somebody gets rough. And maybe I'm just misunderstanding where they are in the current building, but
Yeah.
I thought they wanted them away from a corridor. I just.
So the way that they're currently, that came out of the existing conditions, and there was an issue with that because when you first walk into the cell passage area, the lockers are out in the open right on your left, and there's sharp corners and things like that. These will be built into the wall, so they'll be flush with the wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. More like a school.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Keith, go ahead.
Matt, Jeff, I just wanted to say, so option C, I really like that facade with no precast in it. I think it really holds the element of town hall, but it also makes the building look different, like newer. And but I do like that new layout. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Because you weren't delicate on option B on Friday. And rightfully so.
Any consensus out there as to which design? Any other comments? I liked option C as well. I thought it was, as Keith pointed out, closest to matching town hall, but just with a fresher feel to it.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman,
Well,
I agree. I like so far what I've seen on C a lot better. I had received a lot of comments, surprisingly, a lot of comments from the public about those big white features in the first design sketch, the first elevation. So I like this one a lot better. I think it's a little bit more traditional, but it's got a little bit more modern look to it. So I would agree with C at this point.
Chief, you're going to be in that building. Any comments?
No, I agree. I like the final C. I like the how it looks. I like the stadium seating in the training room. I think that works better than having it flat. And I like the changes with the lockers. It's very important. When we take prisoners in the morning, it's just easier if their personal items are right outside of their cell. It's one less thing we have to worry about, misplacing property or giving someone the wrong property, which has happened. Not recently, but has happened in the past. So yeah, I think great job. Looks good.
Good. Well, functionality is critical, so I'm glad you approve.
I think on that, one note on that stadium seating, it would be nice because the whole town can use that. And that's when you're in a training, it's much easier when you're able to write out instructors as opposed to looking over people's heads. So I think that's a nice addition. I like it.
Good.
One thing we will be doing is, so we've expanded as we move through the process. We expand our project team internally in our office, and so we have a lot of back and forth between all of our team members as far as the design goes and some of the efficiencies. So we're bringing in new voices that weren't here during the study, and that's where some of the give and pull is going to come from. So the more voices we have, the better we can further develop this. And we are setting up an internal design charrette with our senior designer and a few other people in our office because we like to get more opinions, and the more eyes on it, the sort of better quality we can produce with the articulation of the facade. So the next time you see this, it'll be further developed and it'll have a lot more eyes on it in our office. So I think we're going to have a nice product next time.
So Matt, I have one question on something you had mentioned earlier. It's kind of off topic a little bit, but you had mentioned the dispatch area, with the water leaks. If something, God forbid, had happened there, let's say the dispatch area goes down, what's the redundancy plan for that in terms of keeping dispatch alive and well?
So if there's a leak that takes it out, typically what'll happen is you'll instantly switch over to mutual aid. So somebody else's emergency communication center will go and pick that up, or unless you have a backup position somewhere else in town that'll take over that responsibility. There's depending on the severity of damages and things like that, there's ways that the IT folk can come in and work some magic and switch certain portions of it over. But they also have drive up. MEMA has sort of drive up dispatch centers that they can also provide. They have like a trailer that'll drive up and during all the repairs are going on. This actually happened at a station that we had designed just recently where a pipe pad had a small leak in it, and the water sort of traced its way through the building and remotely got into the comm equipment room, and out of nowhere, boom, everything just stopped working. And they were able to rectify it relatively quickly, but it's something that it's challenging to anticipate. And we do our best to try to mitigate that. As an example, the mechanical room is still going to be above the comm equipment room. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have certain pieces of equipment, and some of the more critical pieces are going to be located elsewhere. The mechanical room may not be as big as we're showing it. It actually may be more, depending on the mechanical system we choose. But we're going to build that almost like an interior roof system. So there's going to be curbs and waterproofing and leak monitoring and detection, so that if there is a trickle of water somewhere, it's captured in a system that's not only going to contain it to that unit, but also be redundant. So there'll be, say for a water heater, for example, there'll be a leak pan underneath that with leak detection. And then the ground surface that's on, the slab it's on, is going to be curbed and also waterproof, so that there's a secondary level of protection to make sure that water is not getting down there. But you're going to have a pretty advanced monitoring system in the building. So if there is a leak, it's going to report back, and it can shut that unit off and provide instant feedback to let people know that there is a problem that needs to be rectified.
Okay, good. That's good. Have you ever this is curious because I'm just curious about this. Have you ever designed a building where there's been a kind of a secondary dispatch area? Maybe just one room with very basic services just to keep functionality going?
They have been done in the past.
Okay.
I personally haven't done it, but we certainly could. There's a lot of costs associated with that.
Well, that was my question. How does that affect cost and things like that?
Sometimes it's more prudent to have that at a different facility. So sometimes the fire headquarters or something like that will have a redundant seat. Mm-hmm. That way, if there's ever some sort of major issue where the entire building goes down, we're not relying on that one building to provide that redundancy.
Okay.
Yeah, we're actually doing that.
Pat?
Yes, Chief.
Just to touch on that, improving our radio system is gonna by improving our interoperability with other towns, it's gonna be, if God forbid something happens to our dispatch, our calls get forwarded to Northborough. And with the new radio systems, we'll be able to communicate much better and have a much better coverage of our town just by using Northborough Dispatch, which would be our mutual aid.
Okay. Very good. I just trying to cover all bases here.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Pat, Joe Morrow.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, not to beat this up, but again, I think we discussed this early on. And I had talked about doing, for lack of better terms, it's like a quick connect onto the building. So you could bring the state dispatch trailer in there, and it's just a quick connect on there, and you're pretty much up and ready to go with all the systems that are existing in the building. That would be another option. So if we're looking into that, that would be a good way to do it as well.
Okay. Is that something you've done before, Matt?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes,
Okay.
we've done it before.
Okay. Good to know. Maybe that's something we can include. I don't know if that's in the plans right now or not, but if it's an option and it's a reasonable cost option, then I would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done a number of scenarios. I mean, we've had it in some cases where the EOC or the training room is being used as the EOC. We actually have the capability of doing a remote dispatch console out in the EOC, which in your case is a separate area from dispatch. But what that, you know, that just enables you to set up and have that communication right out of the EOC operation. And we've absolutely done it where we have the connection so that the state vehicle can come in and as well. So those are.
Hi, Jeff. What does EOC stand for?
I'm sorry. It's like working with the government here. We got all these acronyms. It's an Emergency Operations Center. So that's where you'll manage any incidents if there's a storm blowing through, or where you've got to get multiple departments of the community working together. And you know, most communities have at least one, if not several, facilities that are set up to be able to handle an EOC operation.
Thank you. Any other questions around we kind of got off topic a little bit, but around the design or schematics that we've seen? I don't hear anything. Quiet out there. Matt, thanks for the update. I guess we're good until we further develop the plan then. So moving on, it looks like as I look at the agenda, looks like we've covered the design and development of documents. Do you have anything else, Matt?
Nope, that's all I have for tonight.
And review the floor plan, we've done that. Looks like we've reviewed the project schedule in your first few slides. So I think we are good with this agenda. What are we looking at for a meeting schedule at this point? It sounds like we're getting into it now where we're gonna have to meet more frequently.
I'd say at least monthly.
So you think we're good for a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kristen, I don't know if you can clarify, are we required for approval to move through phases by the committee?
Do you anticipate moving through a phase between January and February?
No, I just don't know if we have to do milestone presentations for approval to move to the next phase or not.
I don't know if it's required. I think we should just plan to do that. And also this committee should also plan to update the Board of Selectmen on a frequent basis as well. Mo DiPaolo's on the line. He can probably speak to other building committees updating the selectmen. So let's talk about that internally, but I think we should plan for those things, seeing that this is such a public facing project.
Sure.
Yeah, so then I would anticipate a month from now, putting the schematic documents in front of the committee for review.
Very good. Well, I'm looking at my calendar going out a month, and I'm looking at Monday, February 8th, just to stay consistent with our Monday meeting.
And I would also say, Matt, if we can get the committee documents a week in advance, just because I think it will be a lot of substantial changes, with a brief one-page or summary of the changes that have been made and the progress to date, just so everyone's prepared. I anticipate that we'll still be meeting virtually in February.
Yeah, let's give that another week then, Mr. Pitney.
So you want to go to the 15th?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I have a conflict on the 8th as well, so.
Okay. 15th is fine with me. Alex, you can set that
The
up.
15th is actually President's Day, and our town celebrates that, and it's also February
Right.
school vacation week. I don't know if the schools are actually having school vacation week, but
Would you recommend going to the next Monday, the 22nd, or sometime another day during that week?
We will be progressing into design development, but it won't. I don't think it's going to hold us up one way or the other. We're going to keep moving forward, whether it's a week later or not. So another week is fine.
Okay.
We'll have a more detailed set of documents and and the level of development between that schematic package and the design development package will be less drastic.
Okay, very good. So let's say February 22nd. That work for everybody?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. And maybe Kristen can answer. Will that affect our CM at risk? Bring our CM at risk on board? Is there a vote required by the building committee? Because it sounds like Texon is looking for middle of February to confirm that. I don't know if pushing it back to the 22nd will make a difference.
Yeah, we might need 2 meetings between now and February 22nd. Kevin Griffin, can you give us an update on the schedule?
Yeah, I would say that, especially knowing that Tecton really wants the CM on board from SD to DD, I would say that, what was the conflict on the, there was a conflict on the 8th, right?
I have a conflict on the 8th, but
So, I mean, worst case, we could pencil it in, and if we can cram everything in from now to then, and if we get the OIG application accepted by the 8th, we could tentatively put one in. And, you know, I don't necessarily even know if Tecton has to be on that call. It could simply be, here's the finalists we've gone through, we have the CM contract value in place, and we could go with that, especially if we can't meet the 15th. But I would say between the 8th and the 22nd, you would probably be in a good position to execute that contract, or at least we'd want this board to vote formally. That way we could proceed with a contract.
So if I understand, we have the date for that is February 16th that we have to vote by, if I recall.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same token too, I don't think that if the CM comes, you know, if we voted on the 22nd and the CM's already like, you know, picked, if you will, you know, we said, hey, listen, you're the #1 guy. OIG's approved. We just need a formal. They're going to start chipping in anyways. And I don't think 1 week of, or less than 1 week, 4 days of being on board is going to make really a difference either.
Mr. Chair, I just suggest we hold the 8th and the 22nd, and as we get closer, we can adjust.
I was thinking the same, and even if we had to meet both, if we had to do 1 and 1, I would prefer to do that. So why don't we plan on February 8th and February 22nd? Tentatively for right now, and then we can tease that out as we get closer.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mo.
I'm looking at the calendar. If we needed to meet the week of the 15th, the Board of Selectmen are not meeting on the 16th. So Tuesday is not a conflict unless it is for anybody else. You know, if we need to meet sooner, I don't think we should get locked into just a Monday schedule.
No, I mean, that's traditionally what we've been doing, but I think if we hold the 8th and we need to take a vote for the CM, we can do that, and then we can stay with the 22nd for the next update on the schematic design. I think we would be okay there.
Okay.
And they would just both be shorter meetings. Because I know traditionally we've been doing Mondays, so people are kind of blocking those off. So why don't we stick with that for now? And you know, we could always change it if we needed to.
and just to note, even though I have a conflict, I have confidence in Matt, so I can
Right.
make a meeting if needed.
Okay. All right. Very good. So why don't we plan with that? And Kristen, in terms of Mo, maybe you can chip in terms of updating the board. You've heard a lot of updates from building committees. How often does that occur, and when do you think that needs to be done?
Well, tomorrow night, I was just going to do a quick, ask Beth if I could do a quick update, you know, of where we are today. I would say after we get the construction, the CMR in, I think then it would be the time, because I think we've really got a lot to say at that point. So anytime right after that would be would be good.
So that would be towards the end of February would be when you'd be meeting then. The board.
Yeah, we'll be meeting on the 9th and the 23rd.
So should we plan on the 23rd, and possibly you, Kristen, and I could talk that out as to how we want that to look?
Yeah, I think if Mo gives his update tomorrow night and suggests is the 23rd a good date for the board, he can get back to us and we can figure that out.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Pat, real quick, what time do the selectmen usually meet? They meet usually at a later time than 4:30, 5:30 time frame, right?
Yeah, 7 p.m. usually.
I mean,
You
we could all. I mean, if everybody wanted to meet, we could do it all in one day. Do your meeting and
for a second, Pat. Sometimes lately we've been meeting at 6 o'clock at least once a month. So, I don't know how that will work, but we'll see. I can find out the schedule from Beth.
Okay. Okay, Alex, have you got all that? We threw a lot at you there.
Yes. I'll send out calendar invites for the 8th and the 22nd tentatively.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Anything else, anybody? All getting ready for the football game tonight? No? All right, I think that's all we have for this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second, Kristen Lass.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. When I call your name, please vote. Walt DiPaolo,
Aye.
Kristen Lass,
Aye.
Keith Baldinger,
Aye.
Holly Hook,
Aye.
Chief Anderson,
Aye.
Justine Snyder,
Aye.
Patrick Collins,
Aye.
Joe Morrow,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you in a month.
All right, thanks.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Aye.